Sydney's rail network this afternoon and this evening. Well, to unpack some of the news of the day, let's bring in our political panel, the Labor member for Robertson, Gordon Reid, and the National Senator. So, Labor member on my left, National Senator in the blue corner on my right, Ross Cadell.
How are you?
All right, let's start with you, Gordon Reid. When we went out door knocking your seat of Robertson last year, it's only now your seat, there was visceral anger against Morrison and the candidate for not delivering, and climate change and AUKUS came up. I bet if we went out there now, it would be all interest rates. Is this going to develop into a problem for the government, do you think?
Well, look, I think some of those issues are still being discussed in the community, particularly surrounding integrity, and we're getting very positive feedback in the electorate for the creation of the National Anti-Corruption Commission, one of the key defining features in the early days of the Albanese Labor government. Two, with environment, with climate, something that was discussed on the doors, as you know, the Powering Australia Plan and our Climate Change Act, one of the first bills that I was proud to be in the Parliament when it passed, you know, looking at investing in renewable energy and making sure that we're investing for the country's future.
All right. Well, Ross, I might ask you, I think I'll get a different answer here. Are the government going to get away with this in terms of no political pain? Because the economy could turn around at the time Philip Lowe departs, I guess.
And I think that's likely to happen. I think you're going to see Philip Lowe and the RBA take the blame for the rate rise, and then he might be moved on and, you know, he'll be the scapegoat. But people are hurting. It's not a he said, she said. There's lots of things that we can't control, this government or us, on supply chain things. But there should be more being done, I think, across the aisle to fix these people who are really hurting, and they are. And it's, you know, they don't want to be hearing about how we fight or it's your fault or my fault. They want to be hearing solutions.
And I think we do, and we have that three-point plan that we continually talk about. So we talk about targeted, fiscally responsible relief, so around cheaper early childhood education and care, around affordable medicines, making sure that we're repairing our supply chains.
Give us the 3 points.
Sorry, relief.
Yeah.
So relief, repair and restraint.
Okay. That's easy enough. It's not a Jamie Diaz situation. All right, now, let's ask about the voice. Is this an issue that's close to home for you with your Indigenous heritage? And one of Peter Dutton's questions on the voice has been, is there going to be a definition of Aboriginal in terms of who can be on the voice? What do you make of that?
Well, I'd say that's insulting. This is an issue that's extremely close to home. My grandmother, a Wiradjuri woman, a proud Minguleta elder on the New South Wales Central Coast. My dad, a proud Wiradjuri man, and myself, a Wiradjuri man. This is an important issue, and it's not just about the constitutional recognition that we keep talking about. It's making sure that we have a voice to Parliament, making sure that we have people making representations to the government, because the most important piece of knowledge that we can have as a government, we can have as a people, is knowing when we have missing information. And that's what the voice will be about. It'll be about consulting Indigenous people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, about the issues that affect them, the issues that matter to them, and then putting that to government.
All right, Ross, why are the Nationals opposing the voice?
Different constituencies, different reasons. We take a much more regional and remote thing like this, and when we consulted with our communities, they were concerned there's lots of positive signalling, like we have 15 years of closing the gap statement, these things not flowing through to real tangible benefits on the ground. We're talking about lots of reasons behind that. We see a double-edged sword, that there's dislocation from culture, being a real thing with Aboriginality, but just physical isolation from services, isolation from all these sorts of things that are more a priority for our communities. I spoke to Steve Fordham from up the valley, and he's talking about they can't get their own mobs to agree with each other, let alone an entire nationwide body. They would like to see just more concrete action on the ground, and the voice isn't that way they see it.
But isn't it time for constitutional recognition?
Not if the people in our communities don't want it, and that's the stand we've taken. It's time to stop virtue signalling and doing more on the ground and making these things in. And we've seen cashless debit card, as you raised thing. It's had adverse reactions to all of Aboriginal communities, and it was something that they knew after the inquiry. They knew there was going to be problems. We had women coming up and telling us these things that had to stop, but we blundered through because it was a promise and they said they were going to do it and it's going to fix things. It hasn't. It's made things worse.
I think you want a response to that.
I do want to respond to that. I think that if we continue with more of the same, with the status quo, then we're going to get more of the same. We've seen that education outcomes, health outcomes, employment outcomes for our Aboriginal brothers and sisters have continued, the gap has continued to increase. So if we don't do something different, if we don't allow these communities to speak up in the form of a voice, then we're going to get more of the same.
All right, just finally, we've got this big AUKUS announcement next week. How worried are you as backbenchers of the threat of a China-Taiwan conflict? And Ross, how must it feel for Scott Morrison to have dreamt up this thing and not be announcing it?
You don't win elections, you don't get to announce things. It's a basic rule of politics. But I think it's a really good step. I think the Five Eyes relationship, the relationship with AUKUS, all of these things make Australia stronger. And when you're dealing with very strong, very powerful countries, unity and strength is there, and I think we have this on AUKUS.
And just briefly, Gordon Reid?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the government definitely treasures its relationships with the United Kingdom and the United States in the AUKUS agreement. And we also, as a government, promote diplomacy and dialogue. That's really important in these circumstances.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.